for the updates. I will do that thing tonight, and we'll go from there.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
You know, I literally laughed all the way down the hallway.
I was just
still
like,
in the kitchen making my coffee. So I don't think that Saturday Night Live could do it better. I don't think.
no, but I know exactly who should do it. It should be Amy Poehler. And then
Tom Tucker and Conway Twitty.
And then the one with the crazy hair is that little one who was in the cast with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, and she kept popping up on 30 Rock.
I know the one.
She does the Boston thing with Jimmy Fallon, remember? Yeah, that's her.
Why couldn't it be that actor?
Huh?
They should put her on Saturday Night Live.
Who?
That actress. That's an actress.
Who is?
The woman in the video.
Oh, well.
Yeah, maybe that was just a Saturday Night Live audition tape.
Right? No, she has like a whole channel.
Was she really?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Or like a whole page.
I'm not going to sleep tonight.
It's like her shtick.
Rodney! I'm looking for you.
That's what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
My gear's turned on.
Oh.
I
Yes, Trina.
partially prepared for this. Hello! I did not bother to take a look on even the rundown. Oh, I have a moment to compose myself then. Oh, nice.
is NBC Palm Springs.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Gino Lamont.
And I'm Sarah Sanchez. We have a lot to get to tonight, including a look at the day after the initial impact of Hurricane Laura. For Americans who live in the region, this is just devastating. Plus, there's still plenty of unrest across America. Some areas, protests have turned violent.
But we begin with violence right here in our own valley. There's been another shooting overnight in Palm Springs. This time a 15-year-old is shot and killed. And again, it's in an area that's become a hotspot for violence. People who live there are demanding city leaders do something. Our Olivia Sandusky in studio with the latest on this story. Olivia.
Gino, this is the third homicide in 28 days, and we've reached out throughout that time to Palm Springs City Council member Grace Garner for comment. She represents this area, District 1, and for the first time tonight, she's speaking to us on this issue. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, Palm Springs City Council as a whole issued a statement. It reads in part, the Palm Springs City Council is deeply saddened and concerned about last night's homicide in Desert Highland Gateway Estates and the continued violence that has escalated between rival gangs. We want our residents to know that your safety is our #1 priority. Now over to Council Member Garner's statement that was just issued about 90 minutes ago. Here's part of that.
These problems require structural, community-based solutions that I am committed to working alongside you to achieve. In the short term, the support, consideration, and compassion for our youth and families is critical to our collective health.
In light of all of this, Palm Springs police tell us they're receiving reports of shots fired every few days, and this is a growing problem that requires involvement from all corners of the community.
We are, diligently working to bring those to justice who are responsible for these crimes.
Palm Springs police investigate a homicide in the Desert Highlands Gateway Estates community, the third deadly shooting in the neighborhood since July 31st.
We did find a victim of a gunshot who is deceased in the front yard of a residence. That victim is a 15-year-old Hispanic male. We are looking at the possibilities of the ongoing violence between the two neighborhoods.
The second neighborhood, the Santiago Sunrise Mobile Home Village, also had reports of shots fired overnight.
Clearly, Palm Springs PD does not have the capacity to continue to address this ongoing violence.
Chief Reyes recently told Palm Springs City Council his department is relying on outside help as these neighborhoods face an increase of gang-related crime.
Our officers have been there after hours, knowing that this will continue, and they've literally witnessed vehicles driving up and a commission of a drive-by shooting right in front of them.
At the meeting, Chief Reyes suggested holding an open discussion with both neighborhoods and has since joined Desert Highland on their monthly Zoom call to get community input.
In this time when
Councilmember Grace Garner also suggested connecting youth in her district with mental health resources. The exact plan remains unknown as Garner has not discussed it directly with NBC Palm Springs as violence continues.
Seems every few days we are getting either reports of shots fired, whether we locate evidence or we don't locate evidence.
And for now, Chief Reyes' message remains the same.
There's a lot of people scared, and there's a lot of innocent people that have been targeted, and we need to put an end to this.
Palm Springs police say they also have evidence that 2 other people may have been injured in this incident. They're asking anyone with additional information to come forward. And as for the next move by city leaders, that is still to be determined. Olivia Sandusky, NBC Palm Springs.
Coronavirus coverage brought to you by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of eastern Coachella Valley.
Let's get those latest COVID-19 numbers from Riverside County and the Coachella Valley. 196 new cases reported countywide. That number is actually pretty good. 37 of those from the Coachella Valley, but there were 13 new deaths to report across Riverside County. The numbers show more patients are recovering and work from medical staff is far from over. And as Kitty Alvarado shows us, technical health care workers say they aren't being given the necessary protective equipment to stay safe during this pandemic.
What do we want? What do we want?
Dozens of technical healthcare workers picketed outside Desert Regional Medical Center in Palm Springs to call for more personal protective equipment, or PPE. Gisela Thomas, a respiratory therapist at Desert Regional, says she's been a healthcare worker for 48 years, and this pandemic is unlike anything she's ever seen.
In the beginning, when we had the HIV crisis with the virus, when it first came out,
that was bad, but this is nothing compared to what we're going through right now.
She says they're given one set of PPE per shift, making them afraid to get sick with COVID-19 and expose their families.
We're fighting for ourselves and we're fighting for our patients. You know, my sign says we are essential, but we are not sacrificial.
Todd Burke, a spokesperson for DRMC, says they follow all CDC guidelines when it comes to PPE, including providing fit-tested N95 masks, shields, and all necessary protective equipment to keep their staff and patients safe. And they're never denied more if needed. But this phlebotomist says it's more about PPE quality.
We have torn, gowns. That doesn't protect us. It doesn't protect our patient, and it doesn't protect our families.
Their union is in negotiations with a hospital. They also want pandemic protections in their contract. That includes hazard pay, virus sick pay, and hotel vouchers. Burke says they value their employees, but are disappointed the union is taking this approach as they've only started bargaining and will continue to negotiate in good faith.
They call us healthcare heroes. We want to be treated like that.
Kitty Alvarado, NBC Palm Springs.
The economic shutdown and restart and re-shutdown have put a lot of people in financial distress. Californians are desperate to work so they can pay the bills. But as our Nico Payne reports, one city in neighboring Imperial County is striking out on its own, declaring all businesses essential.
Yes, Imperial County has been heavily impacted by coronavirus, and the mayor of Imperial tells me the problem is not the way the state wants them to run, but rather the timeline in which they're allowed to open. He is asking for a chance to prove that small businesses can be safer than big box stores.
This has been literally hell on everybody.
People in Imperial County are desperate to open up.
Not just on a financial standpoint, but on a mental standpoint.
City officials agree that's why last Friday they circumvented the state.
We adopted a resolution for the city of Imperial declaring that we considered all of our businesses essential.
That means all businesses in the city are now considered essential and can reopen as long as they follow masking and social distancing guidelines.
The city of Imperial, the council of Imperial, is not choosing to be defiant. We are looking out for business owners. We are trying to support those businesses that need the most support.
Imperial County is a rural community that has been heavily impacted by COVID-19. It had the highest death rate in the state. The situation was so dire in early July, the county had to transfer more than 500 patients as far away as Northern California. At one point, 1 in 5 people tested were testing positive for COVID-19, a 22% positivity rate. That's why as other counties begin to partially reopen, Imperial County has been stuck under more stringent guidelines. But the mayor says the strict rules are hurting his city.
We continued to still have local residents leave our county because of these restrictions to go to Mexico, to San Diego, to Riverside, to Yuma, in order to engage in business, in order to conduct their lives.
The mayor says the positivity rate in the city has now dropped to 17%, still a ways away from the state's mandated 8% threshold, but hospitalizations have also decreased 19% in the past 4 weeks. Labor leaders who work to keep employees safe say it's too much too soon.
The issue that I see is the fatigue. We can't be lax just because of the fatigue. We're all tired. Every one of our resources are being stretched to no end. And I also agree, small businesses are absolutely the backbone.
Our intent is simply to support those businesses that are floundering, that are dying on the vines, that can operate safely, and indeed more safely than a Home Depot or a Lowe's or a Walmart or a Costco, which are letting in hundreds of clients at a time.
Part of the ongoing process as communities struggle to come out of the pandemic. Nico Payne, NBC Palm Springs.
Hurricane Laura and the remnants are pushing northeast, moving through Arkansas tonight. Still very much a dangerous weather event there. We wanted to show you what it was like, though, as the hurricane began to push ashore in Lake Charles, Louisiana early this morning. Take a look at just a few seconds of the storm. This is just 30 seconds, right, of an event that lasted hours. You can only imagine what it was like for the people who went through all that. And take a look at what happened to a reporter for the Weather Channel. Yeah, that's glass, broken glass flying. Now, she wasn't seriously hurt, but the hurricane is blamed for at least 4 deaths. Now, take a look at what happened during a live report in Orange, Texas.
It looks like this storm is almost moving due north. So it's going to move probably right up Sabine River. Oh, that's not good. We're going to get out of the way of that.
Yeah, close call when that transformer blew right behind the reporter. Nobody was hurt, and the reporter, being a reporter, was able to finish his live report. All of that happening at night in the dark as millions of Americans woke up to this. Lake Charles was practically wiped off the map. Hurricane Laura's direct hit came in as a Category 4 storm, leaving its mark on every street, every home, every business. Now, a day after the storm, the long process of cleanup will begin. Let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett for the very latest on what's going on with the hurricane and what's happening here at home. Mike.
Gino, I got to admit, I didn't get a whole lot of sleep last night. I spent most of the night watching that coverage live as that eye made its way onshore just before midnight our time. That would have been about 2 a.m. for these folks here. Laura is still very much alive and well. This is a radar loop that only goes back about 2 hours. Yeah, I've got this set for 2 hours. So still seeing a fairly well-formed eye wall and some strong storms that are now making their way up towards Memphis. I'll show you more in a moment. There's a couple things I wanted to just highlight here. We've got some lightning that's definitely embedded into this storm system along the right or the northeastern quadrant of this storm. This is usually what they call the dirty side of the storm. This is where you'll get your most severe winds and your strongest lightning. That's just right now literally to the west of Memphis. Another thing that's going on right now is tornadoes. In fact, everything you see in this blood red color is a tornado watch, but as you zoom that in and take a look to some of the suburbs right around Memphis, just towards the south and off towards the west, we have active tornado warnings in place right now. There have been a couple of cells that have the type of rotation that create tornadoes, and there has been confirmation that some of those have touched down. So the damage will continue as we go through the rest of the night tonight. Folks along the coast there getting a chance to clean up, but everybody here in Little Rock and Memphis bracing for a rough couple of hours before the storm system moves on. Speaking of which, it looks like it will start to take a path very similar to what we were tracking last night. Laura's going to hook a hard right, still holding on to tropical storm status despite the fact that it's a couple hundred miles inland. It's already past places like Shreveport, and now we'll hook that right after Memphis, head over Little Rock tonight, and then across the Mississippi River Valley. Now places like Washington and New York City getting ready for their fair share of wind and rain. It won't be anything like the folks along the Gulf Coast saw, but still it could bring some flooding for hundreds of miles until this thing ejects out into the Atlantic in about another 72 hours. Here's what we're looking at when you put it into Futurecast here. Just boom, it's going to get ripped apart by the jet stream, move across Tennessee and Kentucky, and then eventually out towards Virginia and out towards the Carolinas there, and then hopefully out into the ocean. We've got some monsoonal flow that's staying very politely off towards our east today. You notice that it was hot today, but it's also windy and it's dry. That's some good stuff for us. Tracking some storms that are trying to fire up along the Baja, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen for us. Our excessive heat warning is in place tonight until 10 p.m. and then it will be allowed to expire. The heat advisory that's in place for the Inland Empire will stay intact until Friday at 10 p.m. because their temperatures are staying well above 100 degrees and that's abnormal for them. 113 is what we've got right now. Delightful wind, very similar to what we saw yesterday, pushing down the I-10 corridor. And again, it's a dry heat, 8% humidity, a lot better than it was last week. Next 3 days brought to you by Comfort Air shows another warm one on Friday, but then a trough of low pressure pushes in this weekend. Sunday, it's going to be 105 and our overnights are going to be in the 70s. Fall is so close. Details and full forecast coming up.
And one other note out of Louisiana, a chemical plant fire. It broke out this morning after Laura barreled through Lake Charles. The company makes chlorine-based products. Now the area is home to dozens of chemical manufacturers and oil refineries. A shelter-in-place order has been issued by local officials. No word yet on what started this fire.
Still ahead, a gunman running through the streets during a demonstration against violence and then more violence. And now charges have been filed. More on that. You're watching NBC Palm Springs.
Welcome back, and more on Decision 2020 and the Republican National Convention. Last night, incumbent Vice President Mike Pence built the case for the incumbent President Donald Trump, and he will command the spotlight as he formally accepts his party's nomination from the White House in front of a planned gathering of nearly 2,000 people, capping the final night of the RNC with fireworks. That's set to happen. Coverage begins at 7 o'clock right here after our newscast at 6.
Headlines from across the country. Cell phone video from Kenosha, Wisconsin shows an armed gunman running down the street. Then you hear gunshots, and in the end, 2 people were killed and a third was hurt. The man running with a gun is 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse from Illinois, who crossed state lines and went to Wisconsin. He's now being charged with 6 criminal counts, including homicide. Demonstrators continue to protest the shooting of Jacob Blake. A police officer shot Blake 7 times in the back in front of Blake's children. Officers were responding to a domestic incident and unsuccessfully tried to taser and arrest Blake. Blake remains in the hospital.
As we head to break, let's take a look outside. This is our Walter Clark Highway 111 cam in Rancho Mirage. Looks to be a little breezy out there. Mike's got a look at our forecast when we come back.
That's a good looking shot. I don't think we've done that one before. That's the postal facility down there. Ooh, looking good there too. Here's a live look for you, courtesy of our Agua Caliente Casino Cam. Things looking pretty darn good out there. In fact, seeing folks in the pool enjoying themselves, lots of sunshine and some wind that is blowing out there. That will be a constant over the next couple of days. We are taking a look now off towards, that would be, let's go with the northwest over top of the postal facility there. A little bit of haze hanging in the air, but other than that, we are doing very well. I've got some really good news for you as we go towards the weekend. In fact, we were talking about this earlier. We've got a low pressure system that is punching in from the northwest there. Not very visible, not very strong or potent, doesn't have a whole lot of moisture with it, but what it will do is take that ridge of high pressure that has been keeping us hot and last week keeping us humid and move it a little bit further off towards the east there, and that's going to allow us to cool very significantly this weekend. In fact, you'll notice a couple things about that. It'll be drier and it'll be windier in the afternoons. Here's Laura. We're going to continue to watch her just move across the Tennessee River Valley there, crossed out to Kentucky, Virginia, Delaware, and as I mentioned earlier, earlier. Even New York City getting ready for some heavy rains there. Taking a look at our excessive heat warning, will be allowed to expire at 8 p.m. now. They've actually moved it up a couple of hours. So Shereko Summit, even down into Imperial County, will finally get those temperatures sub 110. Heat advisory for the Inland Empire that I mentioned earlier will stay in place until tomorrow night at about 8 or 10 p.m. They'll let that finally expire. Temperatures getting up to 106 there today. Looks like that's going to happen again tomorrow. Here's what we're doing right now. 113 at the airport, and that wind coming in consistently about 18 to 20 miles an hour. That'll put gusts about 20 to 25. We saw those palm trees blowing. We're perfectly okay with that. That was not what we got last week, and that's why it was so still and so humid. 8% humidity, we can do that when it's 113, not a problem. Taking a look at the big picture, there's your infrared again showing Laura hooking that hard right, getting picked up by the jet stream, and things very, very quiet all the way along the west, even up towards the Pacific Northwest. As that system moves in, it doesn't look like it's going to bring a whole lot of rain their way, but it will definitely pull in some cooler, drier air for us. Currently 96 in the Yucca Valley, 116 in Coachella, 113 out towards the airport, 75 in Big Bear, but look at that, 92 in Ottawa. Big difference between what they're experiencing on that part of the mountains and what they're getting in that part of the mountains. 97 right now in Banning. There's that wind, as I mentioned earlier, that'll stay gusty through most of the night tonight. It's probably going to be about 10 or 11 o'clock before we finally see that start to wind down. And of course, as always, along the I-10 corridor is where it'll be the gustiest. We get ourselves into double digits around 10 p.m. tonight. That's a step in the right direction. And finally, with some drier air, we're seeing those temperatures cooling fairly efficiently. We'll go from 107 around 7 o'clock tonight down to 90 about 2 a.m. And that's going to set us up for one of the cooler mornings we've seen in a good long while. Low 80s, dew points it'll ride in the mid 40s. 112 as we get to 4 p.m. there. Looks like that's where we'll top out in Palm Springs. 113 down towards the south in Indio and Palm Desert. 102 in Joshua Tree, and a quick below to 1,000 Palms. You'll be 112 tomorrow. Upper 70s in Big Bear and 99 in Banning. Your Comfort Air 7-day forecast showing nothing but good news on the horizon. Look at that weekend. Not only will we get sub 110 on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, but we're going to get our overnights into the mid to upper 70s Saturday and Sunday.
Just over 1 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits last week. A lot of people are still out of work, even though the housing market is seeing a rebound. 2 weeks ago, claims were above 1.1 million. And as we head to break, remember you can watch any part of this newscast or any other NBC Palm Springs newscast by scanning this QR code with your smartphone camera. You can watch us on the platform of your choice. We'll be right back.
All right, nightly news is coming up next, and of course, the final night of the Republican National Committee will be wrapping up tonight with the president's acceptance speech. You're looking at a live shot right now that, frankly, many historians thought they would never see, a campaign rally on the grounds of the White House, but there it is. 2,000 people are expected to attend as the president accepts his nomination for another 4 years from the Republican Party. We'll have that for you live tonight at 7 o'clock. We'll be back here at 6 for all your local news, sports, and weather. We'll see you then.